I went online and I was following the social media and things like that, so I saw some of these. I like that. It's interesting. Thank you very much.
Feel free to check out before, during, or after.
Yeah, and he'll be able to sign.
Yeah.
John, the talk's about 45 minutes.
Yeah.
Hour? Yeah. Probably about 45 minutes of any questions.
Thank you.
Sure. You have questions about anything? Just ask.
Hello. Welcome to the library for the Central Wisconsin Festival. This morning we have local author John Jackson Miller, writes Star Wars, Star Trek, comic books, and he'll tell you much more about himself's presentation. Before we get started, I'd like to thank our sponsors and supporters for the Central Wisconsin Book Festival. They're provided through the American Public Library, Portage County Public Library, and the Memorial Library. The Community Arts Grant Program, the Community Foundation of Central Wisconsin, with funds provided by the Wisconsin Arts Board, the Community Foundation, and the AA Esther Greenheck Foundation. Support also provided in part by the Career Law Firm, the Dudley Foundation, the American Public Library Foundation, Portage County Public Library Foundation, the Cobain Care Foundation, Whitewater Music Hall, the Marathon Historical Society, Bound to Have Books, and Young Books. Please give a warm welcome to John Jackson.
I appreciate that. Okay. Here. Yeah, I am John Jackson. I am local at least for the last 26, 27 years. Was just in Atlanta for DragonCon, which is the gargantuan comics and science fiction that we've got down there, and they have talks and panels galore round the clock, and many of them starting at 8, 9, 10 in the morning. We kind of have a rule for any event that's before noon, which is if the number of people in the audience is outnumbered by the number of people on the panel, we bag it and we all go to Waffle House. Unfortunately, we don't have Waffle Houses here. That's a tragedy. The number goes to anyway, so we're all good. So we're good to go. Again, I am that person there. What my website says is I script my childhood for a living. And it was kind of a good time to do that because I was born right in the middle of the phenomenon of Star Wars. I actually saw Star Wars in the same theater that Elvis Presley saw. I lived in Memphis, Tennessee. That's where I was born. Grew up 3 blocks from Graceland. Theater where he saw the film, he actually saw all the stuff there. He shut it down at night, so he could, they would shut it down for him, so he was going to watch. But a consequence, not of that, a consequence of the fact that back in 1977, we didn't have multiplexes. We didn't have these cinemas where movies went on 2, 3, 4, 5 screens. A consequence of that was that it was not possible to get into the movie immediately. You had to wait. There were lines, huge lines, and I didn't actually get into the movie until after I had read the comic book adaptation of the movie. And when I did my novel Kenobi, I dedicated it to my sister Kathy for making sure that I finally got in to see the film. This is the first group of cosplayers that I think I ever saw. Certainly for Star Wars, this was a school fair, and I want to apologize now that is a Dallas Cowboys sweatshirt. Again, it is where I grew up down south. When I moved up here to Wisconsin, I worked for Krause Publications in Iola. This fine lady, Maggie Thompson. I was called in the first week to the gentleman who ran the printing room and the production room. I didn't know why he called me in because I had no idea. I had no magazines going out. I had no books going out. I just got here. And he just stared at me sternly for about 5 minutes. And finally, he pointed to the Dallas Cowboys sweatshirt that I had worn again, not thinking about it. He said, "Don't wear that again." And I covered it. I got no rules. But yes, that is me cosplaying as an Dallas fan. No more. But again, it was the time. I was 9 when Star Wars came out. And sort of that stretch between 9 and 12. Well, they say it's the golden age. That's when Empire Strikes Back came out. So we've got all these photos of these back then. And it's a roadside X-wing in Cherokee, North Carolina. Parked on Cherokee Reservation. I don't know what it was, but these things just pop up and be around. I started writing my own stories. I started writing my own comics, drawing my own comics around the same time I got my first comics. My mother was a great school librarian, so she encouraged me to not just keep my comics, but to keep them in order. As I'm writing my own things, I start out on the Smith Corona typewriter, and I move on to the computer. Later on, I start joining a movement in the country which is devoted to fans sending back and forth their magazines, back and forth their comics and everything. These days we would do a blog. These days we would do a web comic. Everything that I was doing was just something from the comic. And mini comics. A lot of people that are actually doing comics now started doing mini comics. They say I couldn't draw them, so everything I did was sort of a knockoff. That is not the only that is the duck box. That's the only characters I could draw were funny animals like ducks. In fact, I asked a lot. You must have done a lot of fan fiction. You must have done a lot of fan fiction. No, I didn't, because I knew I was for artists, and I was fairly certain no one would recognize I really my drew. And so that was why I did all the characters. The other reason was I understood intellectual property, and I said to myself, I want to make money on this. Not any of this. But the first place I actually get paid for writing, I've become this teaches me sort of how to do a magazine. I'm the editor of my high school newspaper. Go to the University of Tennessee, where I'm the editor of a college paper. Start writing articles about a variety of things. This is the article. This is actually the first article that's when the whole community really work. That was a thing that was around in the late 80s. And that was kind of a big deal for me because it got picked up by artists. At that point, 20 years ago. But then also I was interviewing anybody else who was there to town. I interviewed Joe Biden for 15 minutes. The president of the university was Senator Lamar Alexander, who just retired from Congress here a little while ago. And then what I would do is I would interview anybody who came to town who had anything to do with comics or movies or TV shows or anything, because that was what I was really interested in. I graduated, took a left turn into, went to graduate school for Soviet studies, and I think I got the last master's degree offered for Soviet studies in this country. The reason that I did not get the doctorate is because the Soviet Union collapsed on my dissertation. I literally had gone to a institute for the Russian language, a summer institute in Indiana University, and on my way back to campus so that I could do what I needed to do to go over to St. Petersburg and start doing my research, the Soviet Union collapsed and everything that I was studying vanished. So I said, okay, I'm just gonna take the master's, go on and go back to journalism and hopefully write about something really interesting. I ended up getting a job writing about softwood and hardwood and running actually a line of magazines and newspapers for lumber. That was the first thing that introduced me to the 715 area code, because I was having to call up here to the Lake States all the time to find out what the trees were selling for. But I can say it was not something I was really excited to be doing. I don't know what you've heard about the lumber industry. It is really not as glamorous as everything you might have heard. It was not the most exciting thing. But, back in the day, I had subscribed to a magazine about the comics industry that was published in Iola and over in Waupaca County. And it was edited by Don and this woman, Maggie Thompson. And they had posted in their magazine an ad for needing an editor for the sister magazine for that company, which was called Comics Retailer. And I snuck out and did my interview up there, and fortunately it went well. And so in November of '93, I picked up everything, moved up here, and was immediately hit with a horrible Thanksgiving snowstorm, which made me wonder whether I had done the right thing at all. I have learned to live with the winters here, if not how to navigate them. Actually, I navigate them by staying in the house writing novels. I don't go anywhere when they're going on. This magazine is famous now really for one thing, which is that one of our columnists wrote a column saying, wouldn't it be great if we did a day where we gave comics out for free? He got the idea from Baskin-Robbins, which did free ice cream scoop day and still does. Well, the distributor responded in the same magazine to that idea, and that resulted in Free Comic Book Day, which is now the single biggest day every year in the comics industry. It has spawned similar things for record stores and game stores and other things after that. And I still do as many Free Comic Book Day events as I can. I've done several over at Galaxy over in Stevens Point. I'm pretty much regularly these days at, most recent years I've been in Green Bay because they have the biggest facility that I can actually get into. That's Powers. But it is something where it takes place at every comic shop in the country, so there's something to be done there. And even though I'm no longer working with that trade magazine, a lot of the information that I used to write about is on a website that I run called Comicron, which is basically the world's largest database of comic book sales figures. All the stuff that I saved over the years working on those magazines, I've still got, and it's somewhere. I did some other magazines related to science fiction things and comics. While I was there, I was the editor of Scry. That was the magazine for card games like Magic. And then, of course, I did work with Maggie's magazine, Comics Buyer's Guide, including doing a lot of the redesigns for the magazine that we did over the years. And what was fun about that is it allowed me to meet folks in the business. I met Stan Lee that way. I met a lot of the different people in the field, met people at Marvel. And it was in that stretch almost 20 years ago. It was 20 years ago this December that one of my contacts up there said, hey, we're looking for people to start doing, we're looking for outside folks to come in and do some comics. It's a new talent search thing. Do you think you can write a script or a pitch? And it's like, okay, yeah, I think I can. And that led to sort of the next phase of my career, which involved writing lots of different comic books. This is just a sample of those. In other franchises, a variety of other franchises besides Marvel after doing Marvel first. But then also I did a lot of stuff for Star Wars and then other licenses like Star Trek, Planet of the Apes, Halo, just a variety of different things. So these are what we call most everything I've done is what's called tie-in fiction. Tie-in fiction differs from fan fiction in that you actually have the license. You actually have permission. You have the right to say this is going to be. I did not just put my picture on this cover. This is not me. I did not actually just put my picture on this cover or his picture on the cover and my name on the book and sell it. You will see people trying to sell their Star Trek novels on Amazon every so often. They usually come down within hours because they're not licensed. They don't pay the fee to the people at the studio who publish these things. I don't pay the fee either. I work for a publisher which goes out and gets those licenses. But yeah, that's the difference there. I have sort of the passport stamped because I've written for Star Wars. That got me the chance to write Star Trek. Because I wrote for Iron Man, that got me the chance to write Star Wars. Basically they realized that, hey, this person can actually handle this property without messing up the character or doing something foolish with our characters by playing in our sandbox. What I want to do after a momentary hydration, what I want to do is talk a little bit about some of these individual comics and novels before getting into questions, and some of the experiences that I had with them. Crimson Dynamo, I mentioned, that actually is the first comic book I did for anybody professionally. This is that thing that they asked me to pitch for. And I had the chance to write about anything, and I said, what I want to do is I want to write about this Iron Man villain from the 1960s, Crimson Dynamo, who is, he's basically the Russian version of Iron Man. And I said, this is great, because I have that degree that I'm not using. I have that knowledge of Russia that I'm not using. And also, almost every comic book series that had Russian characters, the Soviet super soldiers or whoever else, they hadn't been very good. The writers had not actually gone there. My artist on this series had lived in Russia for a couple of years, so everything was as realistic as we can make it. And that series ran its course, and that got me Iron Man. And for Iron Man, they basically positioned me as what they called, they tried to pitch me as the Tom Clancy for comics, where everything I did was deeply rooted in real-life military and real-life political things. I am famous for making Tony Stark the Secretary of Defense. Over the course of this year's comics, he spends more time as Tony Stark clearing up Iron Man's problems in this series than as what he usually does. Iron Man usually has to solve Tony Stark's problems. This was a fun series to do. It also helped inspire several elements in the movies because my artist on the covers, Adi Grainov, he was noticed when Jon Favreau, who directed Iron Man, was sent our year of comics. And so what did he do? He saw Adi's artwork and he said, I want to hire you to design the armor for the movie. And so Adi is one of the 3 armor designers for the movie. And as for other things that are in the movie, well, this is Christine Everhart. She is the reporter that we created in this comics storyline, the one who is causing problems for Iron Man. Well, she's in the movie too. And so she's appeared now in 2 Iron Man movies and 2 episodes of What If. This is surreal because I was driving back from dropping my son off at college last fall, and my social media mentions go crazy, and people are saying, John, you're Doctor Strange, you're in the new Doctor Strange episode. And I'm like, I never wrote anything for Doctor Strange. And it turns out that her character is in the Doctor Strange episode of What If, the one that is the sort of springboard for Multiverse of Madness. And at the end of the episode, because she's in that episode, my name is at the end of the episode as well as my artist. So it was like, okay, well, that's very nice of them, but it was very weird because there's only 4 names at the end of that episode. It's Stanley, Steve Ditko, my artist, and me. So that's and again, just for this one bit part character who is on that screen for a little while. But it is very nice that Marvel is doing that sort of thing. Another example, this is Sonny Birch. he was the guy in my Iron Man storyline trying to get control of Iron Man's armor by using the patent law and various legal shenanigans. Well, he is this guy in Ant-Man and the Wasp. Sonny Birch is played by Walton Goggins in Ant-Man and the Wasp, and because of that, they sent me to the premiere, and not just me, but the intrepid Meredith as well, and not just the intrepid Meredith as well, but also they brought Jorge Lucas, no relation to George Lucas, up from Argentina, where he hadn't worked for Marvel in 15 years, but they flew him up, and so we had that wonderful moment of being in the Colossal Theater. This is what used to be Grumman's Chinese Theater. It's the TCL Chinese Theater. It is the world's largest IMAX screen, and so everybody's in assigned seats depending on where you rank in whatever is going on. We're in the second row, and the second row is really not where you want to watch an IMAX movie from, but that's okay. This is one of those weird moments because as the credits are rolling, people are more excited about the credits than they are the movie because everybody in the entire theater is somebody who worked on the movie. So the credits will be rolling, and they will get to costume design, and you'll hear, yay, over here, and special effects, yay, over here, props, yay, over here. And then they get to the Marvel guys, and we're all up here, and my name is 12 feet wide, right over our heads. But unfortunately, Jorge's is a football field away, way over there. And because he doesn't have good English enough to understand really why he had been brought up, and I had Russian, that was no use. We had gone through most of this evening with him not really knowing why he was there. and I'm like, no, your name was at the other side. You missed it. At the after party where all the actors and other people were at, a fun moment was Meredith and I are there with Jorge, and we still can't communicate to him why he's there. And because, again, his character doesn't look anything like the guy in the movie. And what happens is a woman from Disney comes up and she asks, Mr. Miller, is there anything that we at Disney can do to make your evening more magical? Absolutely is the quote. And I said, get me somebody who speaks English and Spanish equally well. She says, strange request, I'll be right back. She comes back with a fry cook. And basically we sit there, me showing the photo of the one actor and the character on my cell phone and communicating, yeah, you're in this movie, your guy is in this movie, your name is in this movie, and suddenly it becomes the best day in both of their lives because they're so excited about it. And when I get home, Jorge has told everybody in the world, and I have 200 friend requests from Argentina. So it was just a great moment, and it was great for Marvel to bring us out there. And so that's one of the kind of fun experiences that comes out of these things. Marvel got me Star Wars. And for Star Wars, they asked me to develop a comic series that was set during the time of the Knights of the Old Republic video game. And so what I did is I came up with a story about Zane Carrick, this kid who was accused of a crime he didn't commit. And he is pursued by his fellow Jedi. He's pursued by the Jedi Masters, who are actually the ones who did the crime. So he has to turn to the con artists and the criminals that used to help him, or that he used to actually have to chase. He has to turn to them for them to help him to clear his name. This series runs 5 years, and there's a colossal book over there that has every single issue in it, weighs 7.5 pounds, it spawned a number of fun things that I had never had before, like their action figures that Hasbro made based on some of the characters, or Kenner rather, there's another one, and in addition to the action figures. I got to my first Star Wars celebration out in Los Angeles and discovered that people were cosplaying as the characters. So again, just a very weird thing because I don't have any experience with that. People wanted to, people at the Memphis show, again, my hometown convention, they wanted to dress me up as one of my characters, and I do not cosplay. I'm horrible at cosplay. Back when I was going to conventions, it was not yet called cosplay. It was called just dressing up in a costume. And I think the only thing I ever did, my very first convention, I dressed up as the world's saddest looking Indiana Jones. People thought I was an armed accountant. It was terrible. And you know, I said, look, I won't dress as one of my characters, but I tell you what I'll do. I will wear the costume of Griff. Griff is the little con artist that's in the Knights of the Old Republic series, but it's got to be the actual size costume. And I thought that got me out of it because Griff is only 3 feet tall. I go to the convention the next year, and they have a Muppet. And so I ended up having to walk around with the Muppet, do performances with the Muppet, and then I ended up having to drive the Muppet back up here to Wisconsin. I went through the drive-through restaurant, and a woman said, "That is the ugliest child I have ever seen." And I said, "Yes, I understand. It is an alien from whatever planet he's from." The Knights of the Old Republic series, as I said, it runs 5 years. I stopped doing that in order to do a book called Knight Errant. And with Knight Errant, I did a book, both a comic series and a novel. This is about a Jedi who is, she's the only Jedi working in Sith territory. There are all these Sith lords battling one another, and she's the only person who's actually willing to get out there and help people. And of course, she's wanted by all the Sith that she's interfering with. And so we actually hired a model to portray her at Star Wars Celebration in Orlando in 2010. And if you got your photo with her, you got a free book. So, because she was running amok through the convention. So, again, a very cool thing. The novel is still available, and we have it back there. But the graphic novel, the comics, had not been available from Marvel for several years. They are now coming back March 7, 2023 in this big book called Star Wars Legends Epic Collection. The Old Republic Volume 5, very, very long names. But those comics will all be out. And then also, I did a series called Lost Tribe of the Sith. Lost Tribe of the Sith. This is about a group of Sith that crash land on a planet with no technology, and they have to survive without killing each other for generations. And it's a series of stories, so every so often we leap ahead a century, a decade, a generation, to show the rise and fall of their society. And this is a thing where, once again, I did a comic series sequel to it so we could show what these people look like. Once again, Marvel has got those comics out as well. That's actually volume 4 of that series has those comics in it. So by the time that 5th volume comes out, you'll be able to get everything I ever did for Star Wars, with the exception of like 2 comic books in those 2 big volumes. Doing all that, as I say, got me into doing novels. And novels brought me the opportunity to finally do Kenobi. This is my most famous novel. I actually proposed it as a comic series and as a graphic novel. And we realized once I started working on it, it would never, ever fit in the graphic novel. The story was too long. It was a story about Obi-Wan Kenobi as the mysterious stranger who wanders into town. It's a Western. It's a Western romance, actually, because the woman who runs the local general store is certain that he must have a secret, because why would somebody who looks like Ewan McGregor move to the middle of nowhere? And again, that is a springboard for Kenobi. It is about his first month on Tatooine. It came out in hardcover and audiobook in 2013. I was concerned that it would not go over well because there are no space battles. There are no lightsaber fights. He does not leave the planet at all. He's somebody who's atoning for what he feels is his failure to help everybody in the galaxy. And he still feels that he probably killed his best friend, Anakin, at this point. But it turned out it went over well. That became my first real New York Times bestseller novel, and it won the Scribe Award for tie-in novel, best tie-in novel, from the association that does it's the association that does tie-in fiction. So it's the media tie-in stuff. With the TV show, That has come out again. Star Wars Kenobi is now available as Star Wars Kenobi: The Essential Legends Collection. And so the previous version of that book can't be found anymore. We're down to there's like a handful of the previous little paperbacks. This is a nice big new paperback that is out that we've got. And so this got a second life here before the TV series. Delightful moment happened when the TV series came out, and there were videos from both Ewan McGregor, the actor that plays Obi-Wan, and Deborah Chow, the director of the Obi-Wan Kenobi series. They both talked about in their videos having read the novel and taken some inspiration for the mood from things. And what I like about the series, among the things I like about the series, they do not overwrite anything in my novel. And in fact, they took one of the major elements from the novel and used it in the series. So I won't get into what that is if people haven't all seen the show yet. But who has seen the Obi-Wan Kenobi TV series? Okay. The whole bit about Qui-Gon not responding to him, that comes from this book. So the whole idea about his master not communicating or not responding to him through the Force, that was a decision we made in this novel 10 years earlier. So they got that from that. In addition to the new edition, the paperback, there's a new hardcover that just came out this week, and that is Tales of Kenobi. This is a Barnes & Noble exclusive hardcover that binds up my novel with another Obi-Wan novel by Alan Dean Foster. The two of those books are together in this nice, swanky hardcover that's leather bound and everything. And we actually have a few of those here as well because we finally got them yesterday from Barnes & Noble. And this is a book that has had, as I say, a huge lifespan. This is the Portuguese version, Star Wars Kenobi in Brazil. This is the Russian version, Zvodnia Vojny Kenobi by John Jackson Miller. And you can see that it's legends because it says Legende at the top there. And that was another thing where the translators of that series were communicating with me directly and trying to figure out, well, what would this word be in Russian? I'm like, okay, I'm going to try. Kenobi led to doing A New Dawn, and A New Dawn is a novel that is a prequel to the Star Wars Rebels series. So about a year before Rebels came out on the Disney XD channel, I began working with Dave Filoni and Greg Weisman and Simon Kinberg, the executive producers of that series, as well as something called the Lucasfilm Story Group, to do something where this would be the official story of the first meeting of Kanan and Hera. It's set 5 years before Rebels, and by working with Filoni in particular, we were able to actually tell how they met, what their first meeting was like, what their first mission was in the course of this novel. And I was 2/3 of the way through writing that novel, and they said, okay, we need you to come out to Lucasfilm. And so I flew out there, got into the stretch car they had, and Timothy Zahn, the dean of Star Wars authors, is in the car, and I proceed to get him lost on the Presidio at San Francisco, looking for the Lucasfilm offices because every building there looks exactly the same, except for one that has Yoda, and I could not find the one with Yoda, and so we wandered around for 30 minutes. But it was while we were there that they said, okay, here's what we're doing. Everything starting with A New Dawn is canon. Everything we're doing from here is an official part of the Star Wars universe because it has been vetted by the Lucasfilm Story Group, vetted and advised by it. So, the idea is that they're able to put things in comics, in novels, in video games, and various other things, and they all have to respect each other's continuity. That is a new thing. That is an ambitious thing. It doesn't always work perfectly, but it's a pretty big deal. And once again, this book propagated all around the world. These are a couple of fans of mine in Brazil that did their own cosplay version of that cover. And again, the Portuguese version of that cover is also beautiful as well. This book has since been collected. We have the book as a paperback, but we also have it as part of Rise of the Empire, which is another 2-book collection with my novel and with the Tarkin novel by James Luceno. That's back there as well. Star Wars also, I did a book for Episode 8, Canto Bight. This is the casino planet that you see in the middle of that movie, and we weren't really able to do anything tying in to other events in the movie, but the casino planet we had full run of. And so, for example, the novella that I have in there is about this card player that we see in the background of one of the casino scenes, and these 3 little guys who are there as well. Warwick Davis is playing one of those, and Warwick Davis's daughter is one of those. These are, we call them the Lucky 3. And so I basically got to tell a really fun casino gambler card player story in that book, and that is one of my favorite things that we've done. And we have that in paperback as well. These are all stories that take place during one night at Canto Bight. So again, really fun thing. And then I realized I hadn't done any kids comics for Star Wars, and so that led me to do a big annual book for Star Wars Adventures. And this was actually, after all those years, that was the first time I had ever written a story with Luke and Leia, and now my battery is running low, it says. So I need to keep going here real quickly. And that book is available in this Pomp and Circumstance book, which is here available now. So again, very fun kids story I did. Having done Star Wars leads me to another franchise. Having done Star Wars, I wound up finding my way into Star Trek. I'd been a fan of Star Trek since back in the day, and it was sort of overlapping with my Star Wars fandom. The first thing I did a novella for the Star Trek Titan series. That's Captain Riker's ship that he gets control of after the final book, Nemesis. That led to Takedown, my first Star Trek novel, which is basically the Hunt for Red October, except Picard is chasing Riker. I put them on opposite sides of a problem. This got me into the Star Trek community, and I met some very interesting people. One of the best moments I had is I had a fun meeting with Nichelle Nichols, who just passed away this year. And then I also wrote the 50th anniversary trilogy, the Prey trilogy, which follows what happened to the House of Krug. Krug was the villain in Star Trek III, played by Christopher Lloyd, the guy from Back to the Future. He's the guy who's, "Give me Genesis," is his whole deal. And so the Krug character is in the novel, as is another important character from the TV show, the clone of Kahless. And I just had a lot of fun writing that. And once again, I did get to meet somebody involved with the movies and TV show. And this time I actually was able to give him the books. So that is Christopher Lloyd and the Prey trilogy there at a convention in Seattle some years ago. I said, "I brought your character back to life." And he says, "What?" And just kind of like he would. Anyway, real fun stuff. They started doing these streaming series then for Star Trek. And one of the cool things is that the streaming shows like Discovery, one of the Star Trek authors, Kirsten Beyer, is one of the authors, or is one of the people in the writer's room for the TV series. She's in the writer's room for Discovery. She is the co-creator of the Picard TV series, and she's the executive producer of the Strange New World series. So I worked with her on ideas for this book, Enterprise War. This is the story of where Captain Pike was during the first season of Discovery. He misses the Klingon War because he's in the middle of a war of his own. And if I had known that Anson Mount was going to be so popular, we would have put him on the cover the same way we put him on the cover in Germany for the same book. But that led to me doing another book working with Kirsten. This is Star Trek Discovery Die Standing. And this is about the Emperor Georgiou from the character that Michelle Yeoh plays. She's the Emperor of the Mirror Universe, who is trapped in our universe and has to serve as a member of the Section 31 spy agency. My book is about her first mission for Section 31. So again, it takes place between the movies, or between the series, and it's a lot of fun. And this book, as well, won the Scribe Award for Best Tie-In Novel of its year. This was in 2021. That led to me doing the book that we've got here, and as I mentioned, Star Trek Picard. Kirsten is the co-creator of that series. This is a novel about Cristobal Rios. He is the pilot that Picard hires in the series. We know from the series that he's a lover of books. So I wrote a book that would actually be about book collectors in the 24th century, and everything that they were involved with. I brought back the people from the planet in the original Star Trek episode where everybody dresses up like they're in the 1920s, where they're gangsters, and they had changed their entire culture based on a book that they had found. And so I brought those guys back. That was a special thing as well, because that episode aired the night I was born. That was the first time that episode debuted. And then, totally to my surprise, that novel won the Scribe Award too. So I am now the only author who's won 3 of these things, and 2 back-to-back, and people are asking me to stop. And I can't stop, because I've got at least one more. That is Strange New Worlds, The High Country. This is what I spent the last year doing. This is hardcover, audiobook, ebook, and there's my power. Yep. There we go. Strange New Worlds, High Country comes out February 21st, 2023. And I find a way to actually trap Pike and his crew on a planet where advanced technology doesn't work at all. And they have to solve the problem, the mystery of why this is, whether they can get off this planet, and then whether it's actually morally right to do what they have to do to get off this planet. Because one thing that's new in the Star Trek series at this point is the Prime Directive. The Prime Directive is brand new when we're in this part of the storyline, or this part of the timeline, rather. So again, that is coming out then. At the table back there, next to the book, there's a QR code where you can scan it, and it'll let you go to a page that'll pre-order the book for you, or where you can pre-order the book. But again, that is a big deal. And then I had other things up here about other franchises that I've worked for. Just real quick hits on. I wrote both comics and prose for Halo. I wrote the first 3 graphic novels for Mass Effect, and we have a big Mass Effect collection back there. And most recently, the very most recent thing of mine that's been announced is there's a pirate video game coming out from Ubisoft in November called Skull and Bones. And me and my friend and colleague James Mishler co-wrote the first graphic novel for that, and the first issue of that comes out in November. And so, anyway, that is what there is to say about that. At this point, we have been forcibly told by the computer that it's time to go to questions, but we were there anyway. Questions, comments, thoughts. How do I do this? How to write? How is it working with these franchises? You name it. Yes. That's okay. Yeah. It depends. It depends, and it depends from year to year and franchise to franchise. And again, these things change. There was a whole period in the 80s and 90s where you couldn't really create anything in a Star Trek novel that was new. but then things loosened up when the personnel changed, and so we had 20 years there where basically the Star Trek novels could be pretty much about anything, as long as they went through approval and they represented the characters properly. There's always some level of coordination, but again, it's easier to do these things when there's no TV show concurrently running with it, no movie that's coming out. For example, all the stuff that I did for Star Wars, where we're talking about Knights of the Old Republic or Knight Errant or Lost Tribe of the Sith, those books took place hundreds of years before Star Wars. So I wasn't going to collide with anything. I just had to abide by what they had told me in terms of, this is what we do, this is what we don't do. They will, at times, they will send you a list of do's and don'ts, but we never say what's in them because people will say, oh, well, they're telling us not to do this because they plan to do a movie about this or something like that. So we try not to go there. Again, it is kind of easier if the property is dead or not moving. A slide that we didn't get to see is the Battlestar Galactica graphic novel I did for the 40th anniversary. And that was for the original show. So the original show has been out of production since I'm going to call it 1979, because the Battlestar Galactica 1980 series, in my view, never happened. So it's not something where anything that I'm going to write is going to collide with anything. And so basically the only thing that Universal told me is just remember that our version of Battlestar Galactica from 1978 is more hopeful and happy than the one that's in 2003. And that I didn't need to be told that, but I was glad that they gave it. And again, it also depends on what the thing is that you're tying into. So those video games, video game comics are actually, and novels are the hardest to write, because those things are always in production, always changing. And there was one particular video game where I wrote a 20-page comic book script, or for a 20-page comic book, and I got back 86 notes on that script from 6 different game designers at the company, arguing with each other in the liner notes as to what this particular species should be called by this other species. To which my response is, guys, I'm sorry, but I'm the truck driver over here. Figure out where you're going before you get in. But that is really the thing. I treat Star Wars or Star Trek or whatever I happen to be working on, I treat those things like it's a national park. You don't want to put anything into that universe that wasn't there before you got there if it's going to cause a problem for anybody else. If you're going camping, you want to take out what you bring in. And so, a perfect way to lose the opportunity immediately is if you're hired by Star Wars and you say something along the lines of, hey, I've got a great story idea. This whole thing about Luke and Leia being twins, they weren't really twins, they were triplets. And so I have this other character over here, and we're going to bring him in. And, that is not playing nice with the furniture. That is not playing nice with the toys. Everything's got to be back in a perfectly, upright and locked position by the time it's done. And so anyway, and again, that is one of the things that makes tie-in writing, in some ways a more difficult thing to do than just doing something in your own universe. I have done a book in my own universe, but 95% of what I've been doing is in these other sandboxes, because again, that's just a skill that I've developed over the years. And it's one of the reasons why we have our own awards program, because places like the Hugos and the Nebulas and the traditional science fiction awards programs, they don't consider the novels that are done for Star Wars or Star Trek or anything like that, because the presumption is these things are already making a lot of money for somebody, and we don't need the help. And that's probably true, but at the same time, it's still a thing. So again, I mentioned having gone to Dragon Con earlier this month. Rogue Elements was up for the Dragon Award, and that's a very nice one where they have a category for us, And I actually won it 2 years ago for that Battlestar Galactica book. Unfortunately, there was no Dragon Con that year, so I got the trophy, but nobody went to the convention because it was in the middle of the pandemic. So, but it was fun to get. Any other questions, comments, thoughts? Yes.
I know you've already just mentioned it, trying to stay within the lines.
Yep.
You still get feedback, entertainment, negative feedback.
Oh, yeah. What I was told by my buddy Mike Stackpole, who I actually hired to write for the Comics Retailer magazine back in the 90s, he was a Star Wars author before I was. And I went to see him basically the week before the Knights of the Old Republic series came out. And he gave me the advice about, first of all, everything's about to change for you. You're going to be in the middle of the shooting gallery from here on out. But he said, what he said to me was, never surrender canon. And I said, not canon the gun, but never surrender the fact that you're the one that they have hired to make these changes to the canon, whatever it happens to be, or these additions. You have the badge. You have the thing on page 4 saying, this is copyright by Paramount. This is something that was licensed to Simon & Schuster by Paramount, and Paramount hired you to do it, or Simon & Schuster hired you to do it. Never surrender the fact that, yes, I'm sorry, this is going to invalidate your fan fiction maybe, or perhaps your vision of what should be happening with these characters. But it's somebody's going to do it. If it's not me, it'll be somebody else. And look, this is the sort of thing where it's flexible anyway. Everybody has their own headcanon. In my mind, we went from Rocky III straight to Rocky Balboa because I didn't want to believe that Apollo Creed had died. And then the Creed movies came out, and they made me bring up Rocky IV back into my personal Rocky headcanon. But if I were working in that universe, I would have to understand that all of those things happen, and I would adapt for them. But that's the way it is for everything and for everyone. And the thing I always say is it's not really important how these stories connect. That's just a bonus. The fact that these stories do connect with each other now is ancillary. It's a plus. It's fun. It should be fun. We should never have a situation where a good story is not treated as a good story just because it tramples on this thing or that thing. A buddy of mine said that the thing with comic book movies, the thing with all these adaptations, whether it's a movie or a TV show or a comic book or whatever, we can't really, as fans, judge them as books or movies because we're coming from a different place. When we go to see The Lord of the Rings, we're going to church. We're going to see the word of J.R.R. Tolkien spoken by a different pastor, spoken by a different speaker, interpreted by somebody else. Which is nothing different than seeing a different play done by written by Shakespeare. We go to see how things are done differently, and if we're fair about it, it can be different, and we can still like it. But no, I've always tried to keep good relations with the fans from the beginning. I got in on some of their message boards, the ones that I was told were safe. And then I try not to argue with anybody. And so, when that big changeover happened with Star Wars, a lot of people were very upset. But I tried to be as sympathetic as possible, and also, my stuff, whether they've told me to or not, I still have it linked with the old stuff. The Picard book has many, many, many different linkages to things that happened in comic books and novels that have never been considered canon in Star Trek ever. That Enterprise War book. I have a list of all of the people who have ever been chief engineer of the Enterprise before Scotty. And there's some of those from the comics, there's some of those from the animated series, all these various other places. And not all of them technically count, but it's all sort of things where I'm like, it's my nod to the fans. Yeah, it costs me nothing to pretend that everything is correct. I think one of the things I try to do is I try to make all accounts correct whenever I can, so that even if maybe these two stories didn't actually happen, elements of them did. That's what the idea of legends is in Star Wars. Legends might be true in part, in whole, or not at all. There are parts of King Arthur's legend that aren't true. There are parts that are. Robin Hood, anything like that. Questions, comments, thoughts?
For how many comic book companies have you worked?
Marvel, Dark Horse, Bongo, that was The Simpsons, IDW, companies that have bought other companies, Dynamite, and more. So yeah, a bunch. You got a question right there. Yes, the Kenobi series, the Kenobi TV series is canon. The Kenobi novel is not. However, as I've said, the way I've phrased it, the Kenobi novel aligns with the TV series, which is to say there is nothing in this novel that is not in the show, or that is overruled by the show so far. They read the novel, they decided to leave it alone. They read the novel, they got the idea about Qui-Gon from the novel. That's good. That means they like it. That means they're not going to mess with it. People have said, they could very easily do the novel in the second season or some similar thing to it, because basically the first season was the road show with him leaving town. They can't probably do more things like that. I would presume that anything else that's coming is going to look more like the novel than like what they did in the first season. But who knows? They haven't even guaranteed a first season or a second season, or they haven't announced a second season. But again, who knows? You never know. I live in Wisconsin. I am not in Hollywood. So, any other thoughts, questions, comments? Yeah, you shoot.
What was your favorite series?
Oh, well, comics, that Knights of the Old Republic series, I had it for 5 years. So I could really build my whole universe around it that was in it. I was able to actually plant, villains, hide them in the series for a long time. I hid a traitor in the series for 3 years. In Atlanta earlier this month, I met Jim Starlin, who's the guy who created Thanos for Marvel, among other things. And I talked to him about, he did a comic series called Dreadstar back in the 80s, where he hides a traitor in the series for 18 months. And I doubled that. I hid a traitor in my series for 3 years. And I was able to do it because, I got to write the whole thing. I got to, every page of that Knights of the Old Republic series, all 1,344 pages, they all came from me. So it's rare to have that kind of control over something. Favorite short story would be a short story I did for the Planet of the Apes book, where is set in 1973 when the apes come back to Earth. I have a TV producer trying to put Cornelius and Zira into a TV series. That was just a hoot. Favorite novella would probably be that thing I did for Canto Bite about the card players. And the favorite novel I've written is that right there, because it was painless. The plot came together perfectly, like an intricate puzzle, and in fact, there's an intricate puzzle in the book, it was something where I wrote it from beginning to end, and I didn't want to leave the characters, and so I made it the longest novel I'd ever written. So and apparently that worked. Now, of course, now the High Country novel is the longest novel I've ever written, and I really enjoyed doing that one too. But I won't really know how much I enjoyed it until I get people reading it. So your mind can change after you get the responses to it. All right, time for one more probably before we need to roll, because I'm doing this as well in Stevens Point. So I'll take some time back here to sign books, and there's bookmarks for people who want them and everything else. Anyway, I think, yes, last one real quick. Yes. Okay. All right. First things are write your own stuff. I told you I started writing my own stuff. The reason is Star Trek will not publish anybody's fan fiction. You cannot write your own Star Trek novel and say, can you go publish this? They're not legally allowed to look at it. The rule is it's invitation only. Otherwise, you'd have a situation where I wrote a novel that's just like a novel that they've got coming out, and you could then sue them if you had sent it to them and they had read it. So they're not allowed to read it. I don't read any fan fiction when anybody sends it to me either. What you want to do, though, is you want to be famous. I hate to use the word famous. You want to be known for having written something else. You want to have proved yourself somewhere else before that. I got Star Trek because I had done Star Wars because I had done Iron Man. I got Iron Man because I had done that Crimson Dynamo book. I got Crimson Dynamo because I had worked for her magazine for 10 years, and they knew who I was. And they knew I could write, and they knew I could hit a deadline, and they knew I knew my stuff. And so where can they find that out? They can find that out from fiction that you've written, from your own novels that you've had published either on your own, which is much easier than it used to be, or you can publish them somewhere else with a traditional publisher. They can know it because you're a reviewer that does reviews on one of the major review sites, or you're a blogger or something like that. There's just a lot of ways that they can find people. The way that I got in, the way specifically that I got in no longer exists, but there are new ways, and there's more people doing things all the time. I mean, there's 500 comic books coming out a month, and there's just an endless appetite for these things. So anyway, good luck. On my website, farawaypress.com, I've got behind-the-scenes notes on everything I've ever done. So any one of these projects, you can look and see how the deal came together, how I got in touch, how it got started. So that's on that bookmark back there. I want to thank you all. I've been through Wisconsin Rapids 900 times, and I've just never done an event here. This is a great library. I appreciate the library for having me in here, and I appreciate you all coming out for an event early in the morning here. So thanks very much.